Okay, hello everybody! In today's video, I'll be chatting with you guys like what's the difference between living in England and in Singapore, and I'm gonna split this video up into a few sections. So okay, the first section will be cost of living, safety, lifestyle, racism. Okay, so first would be cost of living. I live in London, so it differs from places to places. So for example, if you live somewhere outside of London, it's definitely much cheaper. However, you get less accessibility to like nice food and nice city things, but you do get nice nature, so you can consider that. I spend most of my money on food and travels. By travel, I mean like taking the tube or the bus. Each tube ride is about £2.50, which is 5 Sing. The tube ride is consistently the same, if I'm not wrong. How it's based is that when you tap in, you get charged £2.50, and it's the same for the bus. And I live in central London, so I'm quite lucky in the sense where I can walk around. The second cost of living is probably rent. Rent is a very big part of most people's expenditure in London. So for example, if you stay somewhere in like zone 1, it is pretty pricey. It also depends from like a variety of rent options that you might have. So you can stay in a shared house where you just rent a room, so that will probably be like £700 and up if you stay in zone 1, zone 2. If you stay in a shared flat, for example a 2-bedroom apartment in Elephant and Castle, which is still zone 1, but that's like on the other side of the river, so it's near Borough Market, that would cost $800 to $1,000 per month. It depends on the type of building as well. So if you stay in a really nice building, for example like a apartment with a concierge and like a condo style apartment, that actually is pretty expensive, but you get a lot of amenities that is nice. What I've heard is that people do steal parcels, so it's quite nice to have a concierge because they keep your parcels safe. Okay, so eating out here is actually not that expensive. Given the quality of food is actually quite nice. Like you get to eat in a variety of places that don't cost that much if you manage your budget quite well. So I had fine dining at Bread. So Bread is like a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Shoreditch. That cost me £60 and the food was really fucking good. Here are some pictures. Yeah! Like usually if you compare that to Singapore, if you eat like a 1 Michelin star place, it'll be at an upward price of $250 to $300. Okay, I'm speaking here from a perspective of like somewhat more well-to-do than the average student, so someone that earns income and has savings. So I'm basing this on my own experiences. There are always many options for cheaper food as well. So like groceries in the UK are extremely affordable as compared to Singapore because there's not much import. Everything is from England most of the time. Okay, you can't get stuff like Chinese style meats, you have to go to a Chinese supermarket. I think on the final pointer, actually if you don't stay in dorms, you save them a lot of money. Like when I used to stay in Camberwell, that is South London, and I was paying like £800 a month for a fucking room, when places around the area is a lot cheaper. Usually people stay in dorms to make friends, but I didn't make many friends in my dorm. Whatever. If you want to have the opportunity to make friends, it's easier to make friends in a dorm, but if you're not as timid, you can always stay in a shared flat with people you don't know, or like if you have friends in London, then you stay with your friends, and that's usually a cheaper way of doing things. And when it comes to cost of living, etc., like I usually try to manage my money, but I do so by avoiding stuff like shopping. I haven't really shopped in a while, and I don't really buy skincare and stuff that are pretty expensive here. Probably like facials are quite expensive. Nails here are really cheap though, so these are extensions and they only cost like £30. Yeah, because nails are quite a common thing in the UK, so you save a lot of money doing that. Okay, one final pointer on food is like you cannot come here and expect to eat like hawker food everywhere you go. There are things like kebabs and like food trucks, but at the same time, if you're living in central London, it's gonna be upward of like £6. I haven't eaten anything less than £6 in central London. Now I save more money on travel, I spend more money on food, but if you cook a lot, you save money in general. Yes. The next thing is probably safety. I guess like that's a really important thing for most Singaporeans, and coming to London is not safe as compared to Singapore. You can't just leave your things around. People will steal your phone or your laptop if you leave it on your table. Even in school, like you don't leave your things on the desk because people might take them, you never know. So people always keep their things with them. That is the kind of like safety precautions that people take. More importantly, as a woman, I had to really adjust to be aware of my surroundings, and I had to become less timid. Back home, I usually take my safety for granted, so like I would like walk around at night at 3 a.m. It wouldn't be a big deal. Like coming here, obviously you get used to it. Like when I came here, I was pretty timid and I got like harassed a couple of times, sexually once. And people here are rather aggressive, especially when they're drunk. I've never had a bad experience with homeless people, because most homeless people here are actually quite nice and they kind of mind your own business, so you don't have to really be afraid of them. Like as long as you just say I don't have any change, or say like no and be firm about it, they let you be. It's quite different from New York, where like they're really aggressive there. Now that I'm living alone, it's actually alright lah. Like you just have to be more precautious about things and make sure like when you're walking home at night, don't listen to music and like be aware of your surroundings. And most importantly, like don't use your phone while you walk. Most people do that. I still do that, but I try to avoid it. But there are a lot of thieves like who snatch your phone on a bike, and like when that happens, like you lose like basically phone lah, and you have to buy a new phone. So it's quite sian in that aspect lah. You'll probably get used to the differences, because once you integrate more into living in London, it's generally a very fun and hectic place, but you just need to be more mindful of yourself and your surroundings. However, if you live in somewhere like Cambridge or like a smaller town, it's actually really safe, because it doesn't have like the hustle and bustle of typical city life. My pro tip is just be more mindful of your surroundings. And it took me a while to integrate fully into the country, and don't be upset if you are not integrating that well. Like I also felt like I didn't have many friends and I was quite isolated, so don't be too bad to yourself. Hey everybody, we're back to the commercial break of this video. Thank you Current Body for sponsoring this section of the video, and I'm gonna talk about my IPL device for no hair. I'm fucking hairy, but I've been using IPL, at home IPL device. What I like about it so much is that you can twist the head. Wow. You can also control like the power. You can change it so it goes from like 1 to 5. You can control the section, so like different parts there's different like lighting. It's quite premium because like IPL devices, they all generally like have the same setting. There's also different attachments. You can do it for your legs, and then this one is for your punani. You can also do for like your armpit. My legs are basically like hairless now. It's really good. I recommend this device. Okay, I'm just gonna zap myself first. So I'm just gonna do the leg one, and it doesn't hurt. And the good thing about it is like if you change the head, you can like change the direction also. The second thing that I got from their website is this Derma Flash. It's basically like a pore extractor and an infuser. But for me, I don't really have a lot of like pores because I'm pretty. I use this to like infuse my serums, and it keeps my face like really lifted. The third point would be like lifestyle. I would say I'd rather live here. In terms of like work-life balance, it's way more relaxed and stress-free. So like in Singapore, there are not much boundaries when it comes to like after work or like before work, and you constantly have to work all the time, so you do have the added pressure of work. Furthermore, people here are very kind and genuine. Like people that I've met, the culture here is more focused on the individual as a person, not really like who you are as like your family, your status, how much money you're working, you're earning. However, there is more of a class divide, I would say, in England. People tend to focus on, when you come to like academia, they always talk about like working class and like not as much social mobility as compared to Singapore. That's a very important point. If you're poor in London, you really do suffer because you cannot afford a lot of things. So yeah, if you're coming here, please save up money, because I saved up quite a bit of money before moving here, so that really helped me live my life quite comfortably. What I also really liked about living here is that mental health is very prominent in society here. People value your mental stability. If you have really bad anxiety or like you're not feeling too good about yourself, there are many resources online and like therapy to help you get through that. And in Singapore, you're not really valued as a person, more as a number and quantity. I'm not saying like your friends or family, but society. When I moved here, it was really refreshing because people genuinely are quite down to earth. They're very easy to talk to. That's another thing, like the lifestyle difference here. It's very easy to strike up a conversation with people as compared to Singapore. Another difference in lifestyle is that people here appreciate like music and creativity more. They value an individual's like purpose. Really important one, I think, racism. It's a really big controversial topic, obviously, and for me, I don't really experience much racism because I look very like exotic, and that in itself is like kind of a racist branding. But like I don't receive like really rude remarks because they're more like sexualization of me, like how come you can speak English very well, blah blah blah. I don't really take offense to that because people in England are not as well traveled as people in Asia. In Singapore, many people have traveled to Europe, and because we are so bombarded with so much Western films and Western culture, we generally can speak English, like it's just a known fact. However, when people like ask me that how come I speak English so well, it's because they don't really know about Singapore in general, so I don't really take offense to that, and I just offer them the benefit of doubt, like okay, maybe they just never been to Singapore, or like they just assume like Singapore has their own language, which is quite common because what is like the language that people speak in Singapore? That I get that quite often, and I was like, oh, I have to explain, like we speak English and we also speak like mother tongue. For other people, however, like you still get like racist remarks. Like I think it's quite common. I think if you're living in the UK as a person of colour, that's when you really experience the wrath of racism. For an international student, if you don't really interact with cunts, mind my language, you don't really get to feel that. Like for other people, however, like living in the country like long term as a person of colour, that's when you do feel very racially attacked. I have heard stories. Just give them a piece of your mind. Like I feel like if you do encounter someone who is racist to you, just tell them off and like don't have to be scared. I think there was this situation about Raymond Tan, who was the guy that was riding the bicycle and then he almost got stabbed. Okay, that was, generally speaking on the whole, that was quite scary. There was also like the COVID hate towards Asian people in London. For me, I didn't really get much, and okay, I cannot really say because I also went back to Singapore during the whole period. There were a lot of like beatings that happened across, and I think generally like people attack Asians, like Chinese people in England, because we look more fragile and weak. Pro tip, I feel like carry pepper spray or like learn how to like defend yourself. Like okay, I forgot to add, but the last point I would say living in London is you have to get used to how inefficient this country is. Okay, let me tell you, this country, when I first moved here, Jesus, like everything is so inefficient. Like the train's always shutting down. People are generally slower. Like you have to get used to that. COVID here is insane, I would say. Like okay, because I have lived here for quite some time, people generally don't really care about COVID as much as Singapore. So when I came back, people don't really wear masks. The rule of thumb is only wear masks indoors, not to wear masks outside your house. Outdoors is fine. So for example, if you watch Wimbledon right now, there is literally no social distancing and no one's wearing a mask, and you don't even need to be vaccinated to go watch Wimbledon. And as we speak, I think there are about like 100,000 cases in the UK for Delta variant. Only half the population has been vaccinated on their first dose, so yeah, it's generally fucking slow. And COVID is not taken as seriously as other places, and I think that's one pointer that you should note. If you move here, like be precautious about COVID if you want. If not, like you generally are allowed more freedom of speech to do freedom of choice as well, which is enjoyable, but at the same time quite detrimental if like we're in a pandemic. My Wi-Fi is really slow even though I stay in central London. My upload speed is like 1 gigabyte. Yeah, so there are generally things that are slow because the country is very very old as compared to Singapore, so a lot of infrastructure is not really in place. If you want to go to the GP, for example, you kind of have to wait a very very long time. Just get insurance and then you don't have to go to a NHS, you can use private. So yeah, there are options also lah. So like I recently had a friend who got COVID even though she got vaccinated, and people tend to bend the rules a lot more as compared to Singapore. Hi guys, thanks for watching that video. Leave a comment on what other questions you want to know between UK and Singapore, and get your vax.